Over 5 years. I wired my family $72 so, but they smirked and mocked me. I stayed silent and began planning their financial reckoning. They handed me a mug that read, "Stop asking why. Just pay and smile." I smiled, and 24 hours later, their phones were buzzing not with money, but with consequences. They were calling in a panic the next morning. My mother raised her wine glass and said, "Come on, it's funny," as the Easter centerpiece softly shaded her face with an uncontrollable smile. I sat there in silence, holding the mug that Emily had just given me. Stop asking why. Just pay and smile. Everyone chuckled. Dad laughed too from his side of the table. Emily made a fictitious toast with her glass, continuing, "To our sponsor." Then, as if it were the joke she'd been waiting all night to say, Mom added, "You're not our son. You're our sponsor." More than laughter, the words lingered in the air. I had recently sent $18, to pay for Mom's second root canal. Emily's minor fender incident that inexplicably required a full bumper replacement, and their past due mortgage, after cutting short my work trip to attend to their emergency. I hadn't even finished unpacking, and now this. "Emily," I uttered, clutching the mug in my hands. "Where did you even find this?" She smiled and said, "Oh, I had it custom made, thought it fit. You're always stressing about why you're the one helping everyone." They just thought. I glanced at my mother, then at my father. Mum grinned. "Don't be so sensitive. You've always been the generous one." Dad never raised his head from his phone. "It's just a joke. Relax." "Correct. It's a joke." They joked last Christmas that since I essentially managed the household, I should deduct family expenses from my taxes. Or how, when I was promoted at work. They made a joke about upgrading their sponsor. I surveyed the table. Emily was wearing her expensive pastel dress, which I bought for her after she said she couldn't afford an Easter-appropriate outfit. James, her fiancé, stuffed his face as if it were a free buffet, which it was. Mom grinned as if she hadn't just used tears and shame to persuade me to settle her credit card bill. And Dad, not there as usual, unless someone needed funding, fixing, or signing something. Mom went on, "Isn't this nice? A real family holiday. It wasn't pleasant. It wasn't real at all. It was a show, and the entire show was sponsored by me." I gave them the smile they requested, and something silently and irrevocably broke inside me at that very instant. This was not always the case, or perhaps it was, and I was simply too preoccupied with trying to be helpful to see the rot taking hold. I was raised to believe that love was based on favors, that being the one who could be relied upon meant being the one who was loved, that they would eventually look at me the way they looked at Emily if I put in enough effort, gave enough, and solved enough problems. However, I was mistaken. In actuality, they had owned Emily from the beginning, their miracle, their pride, their evidence that they were correct. I was also a resource, a backup plan, a moving safety net, an instrument that pays. It began slowly, it always does. I covered Emily's rent for 3 months after her first venture failed. I paid for Mom's dental work twice when it became critical. Guess who kept the lights on at home when Dad's old friend was unable to repay a loan? Me. Always me. They also gave me the impression that I was making up for something each time I took the initiative, as if I owed them. Mom would add, "You know we gave up a lot to raise you." If I was hesitant to send money, Dad once said, "We didn't ask you to be successful so you could hoard it all." In response to my inquiry about reimbursing Emily for her auto insurance, Emily had her own version too. "It's not like we're strangers. We're family. You know I'd help you if things were reversed." However, they never were, since I ensured they weren't, because I sacrificed my life to be the one who was never in debt, problems, or need. 6 months ago, the first real crack appeared. Emily sobbed when she called me about James's business. "It's falling apart," she cried. "If we don't cover the next round of equipment, he'll lose everything. Please." You know I'd never ask unless we were desperate. That following evening, I transferred $4, $700. A week later, I noticed her in a picture at a posh winery, laughing, sipping a glass of wine, and James flashing a Rolex next to her. "Well-deserved weekend." Read the caption. I remained silent. Rather, I thought, perhaps it was sponsored. It might have been old. Perhaps she needed the respite. However, the pictures continued to appear, high-end footwear, brunches, a new iPhone, and then the Easter meal, the mug, the derision, the joke from the sponsor. After that night, I began going through my accounts. I traveled back 5 years, $72.85 so. I had given them that amount given, not borrowed in gifts, bailouts, transfers. Payments, and emergency coverage. When I saw the total, my hand trembled. I gave my bank a call. 3 joint cards were frozen. I updated all my passwords on the internet, established a fresh savings account, and transferred my remaining funds there. I received a text from Mom that evening. "Hey honey, can you send $600? I forgot to pay the HOA, and they're threatening a fine. Just till Monday." I didn't respond. Emily. 10 minutes later, Mom says, "You're mad. Is this about the mug? Come on, don't be weird. It's just a joke. Nothing has changed." Then Mom at midnight, "We didn't mean anything by it. You know we appreciate you. Don't make this a thing." I gazed at the display. "Respect me." Like when they thanked me for driving 6 hours in the snow to pick up Dad from the emergency room because Emily needed to go to the spa, for example. They didn't include me in the Maui family vacation since you wouldn't want to spend money on such a thing. Right? No, this was not a show of gratitude. It was addiction. The version of me that paid discreetly and made no requests was the one they were addicted to. Withdrawal is cruel. All right. Emily arrived at my flat early the following morning. She walked in like she owned the place as soon as I opened the door. "Seriously," she said abruptly. "You're ignoring us now." My back was to the counter. "You mean like how you ignored my last raise, my last birthday? And every time I said I was overwhelmed?" She laughed. "You're making a scene over a joke mug." "No," I replied. "I'm making a scene over $72.0 and zero respect." She stopped talking after that. She blinked. "What are you talking about?" "I've tracked every penny I've sent in the last 5 years," I replied. "Every emergency, every loan you never paid back, every phone call that ended with me feeling like I owed you something." "Defensive." Emily crossed her arms. "We're family. You're supposed to help." "No," I replied. "I did help. I helped you stay comfortable while calling me uptight. I helped Mom pay off her cards while she called me paranoid. I helped Dad with his projects while he told people I was cold." She gave an eye roll. "This is so dramatic." "What? You're cutting us off now? Going to punish us?" I grinned. "No," I muttered. I stopped asking why. And for once, I smiled while saying no. I couldn't get that smile off my face the remainder of the evening. Apparently, word got out quickly because the following evening, I received an invitation with the subject line, "Let's clear the air for a family Zoom call." It was sent by Emily. She did. Of course, not being at the heart of resolution was something she could never tolerate. The call began around 7:00 p.m. sharp. Emily exuded strategic appeal with her immaculate appearance. Mom exercised concern and was all pearls. Dad, as usual, silent, uninvolved. James hung in the background, his shoulders partially out of sight, as though he was worried that guilt would spread. "Hey, there he is," exclaimed Emily. "Glad you made it. We figured it's time to move on." "Right," Mum said. "Of course," and nodded. "It's Easter season. Time to heal. Family first. With ease and control." I grinned. Glad we're all on the same page. Emily started off with a self-congratulatory speech about how sticking together makes us stronger and that tension isn't healthy. It sounded to me like background jazz. I accessed my banking app on my phone after unlocking it beneath the table when I opened the insurance dashboard. Emily was in the middle of saying something about re-establishing confidence. Emily's Toyota Corolla from 2021, registered under my name, paid on a monthly basis, automatic payment of $249. I selected cancel.confirm policy, then changed tabs. DMV website, Emily receives ownership from me. Submitted. Let's get back to banking. A last flourish, give Emily $1. Message, I will never give you another penny. Put it in a frame. Click. Completed. Her cell rang. She frowned. Blinked and looked down. What is this? I took a drink of my tea. I just took care of something important. Mum narrowed her eyes. What kind of important? I grinned and leaned in. Don't worry, you'll feel it by tomorrow. After that, I unmuted myself, selected leave meeting, and saw their bewildered, frozen faces disappear like vapor. My phone's chime verified everything. The money has been sent. Cancelled. Insurance. Transfer of title. Additionally, Emily received a legal email in her mailbox, informing her that she was now the proud owner of her own mess. At precisely 9:17 in the morning, Emily's vehicle vanished from her driveway. She texted me as soon as she noticed it so. I know that. Emily, have you cancelled my policy? Emily, really? Emily, I've lost my automobile. Towed. Emily, it's insane. Give me a call now. I didn't respond. After an hour, my mother began phoning. Next my father, then James. In less than an hour, 8 calls were lost. I was aware of what would happen next. We need to talk. Dad texted. 5:00 p.m. on Sunday. Only family. No justifications. Excellent. I arrived without a smile on my face. Guilt-free. Without regrets. I knew they would all be there, and they were. My mother, with her arms folded like a disgruntled educator. My father, hands on his lap, tense. Emily, hair disheveled. Phone gripped like a weapon. No car keys visible. James, silent, pale-eyed, and flitting. Sat off to the side. Sit, Dad muttered. I remained upright. Mom yelled, "You think this is funny? What you did to your sister? The humiliation, the danger." I arched my eyebrow and asked, "Danger? You mean finally making her responsible for her own property? That kind of danger?" Emily's voice was shrill and scared as she jumped in. "You had my car towed." "No," I replied. "You had your car towed. I just stopped paying for it." I took a big, well-organized color-coded folder out of my bag. $72.85 so. I placed it flat on the coffee table. "That's how much I've given this family over the last 5 years. Everyone fell silent. "I'm not asking anymore. I'm demanding repayment." With a harsh, trembling laugh. Mom laughed. "You can't be serious." "Oh, I am," I replied. "For the first time in my life, I'm dead serious." I opened the folder. Included are well-highlighted bank statements, transfer logs, Zelle screenshots, and auto payment plans. "I've split the amount between the 3 of you," I said. Mom, $23.70 so. Emily, $38.60 so. Dad, $10.55 so. "I expect a payment schedule. I'll give you 90 days. Dad got to his feet, his voice low and irate. "You think you can treat your family like debtors?" "No," I replied. "I think you've been treating me like an ATM with a guilt complex. I'm just doing the math." Emily gave an eye roll. "So what? You're keeping score now. You said you were doing all this out of love. And you said you respected me. Then you gave me a mug that said, 'Stop asking why. Just pay and smile.'" I grabbed another document and slid it in their direction. "Remember that emergency line of credit I opened for the family 3 years ago? The one Mum called just a formality." I looked at the signature. "It's binding, legally. So yes, I can sue." The space was still. James said something to himself. "What?" yelled Emily. He glanced back at her after glancing at me. His voice wavered. "I told you this would happen. I told you he'd fight back." "You told him," she yelled out. "Are you kidding me? I trusted you," he stated. "You said he'd never push back, that he was too soft." Emily's mouth quivered once more. Mom jumped in. "You're overreacting. You're going to destroy this family." "No," I replied. "I'm just closing my accounts." I then took out the $1 transfer printout and let it fall to the table. Transaction. Note: I will never give you another penny. Put it in a frame. I walked toward the door and added, "And if you think this is betrayal, then you haven't even begun to understand what losing me actually means." As I walked away, nobody spoke. They were unable to, for the first time. The quiet was deafening. No one reached out when I left that living room with my folder and their jaws on the floor. No angry texts. No calls of guilt. Emily didn't even post one passive-aggressive meme. It was joy. My phone was silent for the first time in years. Quiet. Not because they were ignoring me, but because I had earned it. I wasn't frozen. I had freedom. Even while I would love to say that I moved on right away, doubt did start to creep in 3 days following the showdown. While deciding whether to switch brands to save money, I was standing in front of the oat milk section at the grocery store when I had the idea. What if I was too harsh? What if I had been able to manage it better? Then, as if on cue, my phone buzzed. Emily was the one. Mum's blood pressure went up, just so you know. She claims that imbues that the stress you produced is the reason. It was there, like the head of a snake. Emotional coercion. Guilt and blame, all remnants of the old cycle. I didn't flinch this time, though. Me was the second word I typed back. Blocked. I meant it too. The consequences were immediate. Mum unexpectedly arrived at my apartment building 2 days later. Only because I was buzzed by the front desk did I know. She says she's your mother, and it's an emergency. I didn't even inquire about the nature of the situation. Tell her the sponsor's out of service. That was all I said. However, their desperation wasn't the most outrageous thing. It was the pleasure it brought. I was returning to the gym, improving the quality of sleep, making food without causing tension. I'm browsing my financial app. I felt as though my flat had been holding ghosts that I had been unaware of until I expelled them. Then, one evening, I received an unexpected message. Not from Emily, not from my folks, from James. Can we have a conversation? I realize this is strange. I spent some time looking at the screen. I couldn't tell if it was bait or not. I couldn't be certain if he was a puppet, but I was intrigued. Speak, I replied. Not a favor, not guilty. Simply speak. James, the first understand. I do. I simply have a message for you. By themselves. The following day, we decided to meet in a coffee shop, neutral land. He appeared as though he hadn't had any sleep in a week. He sat down and began. I'm not here to defend Emily. Good, I replied, because I'm not interested in hearing it. He gave a nod. I'm here because I think I'm done too. I watched her lie to your face. I watched your parents let it happen. And I kept waiting for them to show some decency. But they didn't. Now she's talking about suing you for emotional distress, he said, running a hand through his hair. I blinked. Seriously. He gave a nod. She's spiraling. And honestly, I don't think she believes it'll work. She just wants to punish you. I reclined. And where do you stand? He gave me a direct glance. I'm out. I'm done financing delusion. I've already spoken to a lawyer. I'm filing for separation. That's done more for me than any punch she could have thrown. He continued. I apologize for not speaking up sooner. I should have. You were the only one holding everything together. I was just trying to stay afloat. For a while, we sat in silence. Then he gave me an envelope just before I left. There's a check within, $1.0 so. Memo, toward what they owe you. I know it's not much, he stated, but it's from me, not them. I figured you deserve to know someone saw you. I felt the sting of genuine tears behind my eyes, for the first time in years, not out of anguish, but out of approval. I accessed the family debt spreadsheet on my laptop that evening. I wrote paid $1. With sincerity next to James's name. I then changed the file's name to closure in progress. I poured a glass of nice wine for myself, the kind I saved for vacations that were invariably marred by forced smiles and more constrained spending plans. I drank to myself this time to the tranquility, to the limits, to the liberty of having no sponsors. 3 months have gone by. It has been 90 days since I left that house, dropped the folder on their coffee table, and broke my silence. Since then, I haven't seen them. After about the 4th week, the calls ceased. By week 6, the texts had decreased. Emily has reportedly been taking time to heal, which I presume is code for finding a new idiot to support her lifestyle. According to mutual pals, I didn't give a damn. I had lost my anger. They have never been able to comprehend that I'm done, I said, not in a furious manner. I intended to say finished, as if a chapter had been concluded. Like an internal door bolted, I was no longer a sponsor, and I was now a man with a future free of shame, pleading, and emotionally ruined people bearing my last name. I moved out of state for a new job, less chaos, better pay. The new flat was a place free of the echoes of past phone conversations and frantic pleas for money. I began attending a boxing gym. I was finally able to fight, not because I wanted to. Once more, I had my own schedule. It's my money. It's my energy. I became pals, not the sort that remembered your birthday and didn't give you bills masquerading as emotional needs, or the kind that desired something. I even went back to dating someone who is tranquil, someone nice, who asks, "What do you need today?" as opposed to, "Can you help just this once?" For the first time in 10 years, life wasn't simply better, it was real. Then last Sunday, precisely 90 days after the altercation, an unforeseen event occurred. I received word of a deposit. Mum gave me $1. Memo: I assumed you would like the mug to be appropriately framed. For an entire minute, I gazed at it. I initially believed it to be bait, a joke, an attempt to entice me back in via passive-aggressive tactics. Then, though, there was another alert, an additional $1 from Dad. Memo: interest. People say I owe you more. Then, 30 minutes later, Emily gave me $2.50, not a message. Nothing but quiet. It was unbelievable to me. It was absurd, symbolic, petty. Perhaps they were making fun of me. Nevertheless, for the first time in weeks, I burst out laughing. I almost spilled my coffee, laughing so hard, because all of a sudden, I understood that they were finally carrying out a request I had made for years. They were repaying me in the tiniest, most reluctant manner imaginable. However, it had begun. Perhaps that is what frightened them the most. Not the cash, not the quiet, but that I ultimately forced them to face the consequences. However, the twist wasn't that. Later that evening, the twist was revealed. My phone buzzed again when I was enjoying a beer and admiring the city lights from my balcony. It wasn't an SMS message. My bank sent me a notification. $3.0 had been paid. Emily is the sender. Memo: not at all. I blinked, revitalized, checked once more. It was authentic, $3.0 so. Not a message. No justification. However, I was aware this was hardly a sacrifice for peace. It was terror, fear, that I might actually file a lawsuit, that I wasn't playing a bluff, that she had lost her power, she had misjudged me. They all had. And now they were attempting to re-enter the version of me that paid the bill and remained silent. Too little, too late. Only this time, I saved the screenshot I took in the same folder where I kept track of their debt. After that, I gave that folder a new name. Closure confirmed. I gave $1 of that money to a nearby women's shelter the following morning. I transferred the remaining funds to a fresh savings account called Rebuilt from Ash, because this narrative was just that, not retaliation, not discipline, but recovery. I regained my time, my funds, my name, and, above all, my tranquility. And as I stood in my new flat, which was bright and full of plants and had no signs of coercion, I muttered as I gazed around, "This is what family should feel like."